So let's touch quickly on unions, because I think that it's an incredibly timely point. I mean, there are videos going up daily of workers who are talking about their experiences of not being, they're being overworked, they're in unsafe and unhealthy circumstances, just generally speaking, but during COVID, even worse so, from big companies like Amazon to construction workers who are, I don't know if you saw that video of the worker in Canada, actually, at a construction site, mobilizing and activating his fellow workers, and it looked like it was pulled from, the early 1900s. It was powerful stuff. So what can the left do? I mean, at this point, when unions are hurting and they're tied, most of the unions in America are tied to the Democratic establishment and not reflective of their base, everything from teachers to service workers, to domestic workers even. I mean, how do you mobilize and reform these institutions that are already hurting?
So I live in Chicago, and Chicago became pretty, nationally and internationally famous for the Chicago Teachers Union strike that happened here in 2012. And then there have been two others since then, as well as charter school strikes. And I wrote a book about that in 2014, and it was about how a group of activists within the union who were rank and file teachers, some of whom were socialists, a small number, but not all socialists, others just progressive-minded teachers and people who were pissed off that they're at their union, felt like that public education in the city of Chicago was under attack and their union wasn't doing anything about it. And so they got together and they started organizing, and they took over the union in 2010 and then went on this strike in 2012, and arguably were the inspiration for the teachers strike wave that kicked off in 2018 and really reshaped all of politics in the city of Chicago through that strike. They became like the anchor of the progressive political coalition in the city. And again, that's something incredible. We just elected half a dozen socialist city council members in Chicago, as well as more progressives beyond that. All of that was able to happen because this small kind of ragtag group of socialist and progressive and activist teachers got together and took over this union and engaged in strikes and had a new kind of progressive democratic, small d democratic militant unionism that saw its purpose as not just fighting for those teachers, but fighting for students, fighting for affordable housing, fighting for the whole working class of Chicago. And so, again, that was just average people who got together and did that and changed their unions. And so we have a whole section in the book on that, like the labor strategy, on how people can do that. I mean, all of us, I think it's important to have people who, host shows like this or who edit magazines or whatever. But the vast majority of us are, working jobs, sometimes crappy jobs that we don't like very much. You need to organize at work. Like if you don't have a union, you can create one at your job. If you do have a union and it's not fighting the way that it should be, you can get together with other people and change your union. And that is one of the most pressing tasks that we need right now, because unions at their best, in the way that they are at their best in Chicago, have such enormous social power, have the ability to really transform a political landscape. And so people who are progressives and leftists and socialists need to be seeing that as a key place for them to be fighting, whether we're in a pandemic or not.
Right, especially now. In so many different ways. How do you think that your tips and your guidance are going to be utilized reflective of this moment? I mean, you wrote this obviously at a different time and even published at a different time, but the tips are perfect for this moment that is just exposed all the flaws in our systems and our institutions and our economic, the way that we treat our workers, healthcare, of course, and even our electoralism. So, this is a great book for this moment, but how do you think it's going to be used moving forward? The tips.
Well, obviously, in some ways, everything feels like it's sort of out the window when you have this like once in a century pandemic happening.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, everything that is bad about this pandemic or almost everything that's bad is basically things that were already very bad times 5, times 10, times 100, And so left elected officials, as one example, are taking on a whole new role right now. You see a figure like AOC or like Ilhan Omar playing the role of advancing a set of progressive demands that is not being advanced by the Democratic Party right now. They are the voice of the working class. They're the only ones who are, you look at a country like the UK, obviously led by a right-wing Tory government by Boris Johnson. Even Boris Johnson is providing like 80% of UK workers' incomes during this crisis. But the Democrats here, the supposed left-wing party in the United States, are not advancing that, but Ilhan Omar and AOC are advancing that demand. And so it's all the more important. Can you imagine how bleak it would be right now if we didn't have this small handful of left elected officials like Ilhan Omar or Bernie or the rest of them? Or in Chicago, our socialist aldermen are advancing the same kinds of bills on the local level that the mayor isn't touching. So there's a new level of importance of those kinds of figures. And I think that, as many people have noted, right now, a moment of crisis like this one is the opportunity. Things could either get a whole lot worse or they get a whole lot better. I mean, this opens up a whole new set of possibilities for us to make change in society. And if we are continuing to bang the drum on something like Medicare for all, which if people, the majority of Americans already supported Medicare for all before this pandemic, but I think that people are realizing like this is insane. Like we literally cannot get a hold on this crisis if like people are getting sick with coronavirus, but they're trained to not go to the hospital because they know that it's going to bankrupt them.
Or if they lose their jobs. I mean, as 30% of the workforce is about to. I don't even think the health insurance companies are going to be able to survive this, and then they'll want a bailout. If a third of their subscribers or more are suddenly not working with the health insurance industries, they're going to go under as well. And we will not have a choice at that point. So sorry for the wake-up call, Joe Biden.
Exactly. And not only that, but there's projections that, next year, assuming things return back to normal, premiums are going to go up by 40% or 30%, whatever it is. I mean, can you imagine the horror? So all of this is to say that it is now more important than ever to be advancing the case for Medicare for all. I mean, everyone would say, oh yeah, well, we want Medicare for all, but there's no chance that it's going to pass. Well, our current healthcare system is not going to emerge from this crisis the same, one way or the other. It's either, as I said, it's either going to get a lot better or it's going to get a lot worse. And so it is the job of left activists, of socialists, of progressive activists, to not stop, to be, twice as loud about the need for Medicare for all right now. And so I think that, the movements that have cohered in the last couple of years that have been inspired by Bernie Sanders have to keep, we can't be out in the streets. We can't be knocking on doors in the same way. But we have to use whatever means are at our disposal right now, because this is a time of crisis and a time of major upheaval in the institutions of our lives. And we have to make sure that upheaval goes in the progressive direction, not in the one of barbarism.
We need to make sure that we're pressuring the right political points, because we can't just show up on the doorsteps of the Capitol and flood the hallways of the Capitol like we were doing a couple of years ago. So, Micah, super interesting book. Go out and buy it, not on Amazon. Although there's only 4 left on Amazon, so.
They're just flying off the shelves.
If you want to buy him somewhere else, then buy him there so he's sold out. That's a great thing. Now is the time. We'd love to have you back on, possibly in studio, not here in Arizona, wherever. This studio will end up in New York at some point. Might be in my apartment, so I really appreciate it. And stay safe, stay healthy. Love to have you again soon.
Well, yes, same to you in terms of staying healthy, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you for watching. You can support The Nomiki Show on YouTube by clicking subscribe, like, and sharing. Because as you guys know, now more than ever, we have to support our independent media. We are being attacked from every angle, and everyone's watching CNN every night, so it's important that we take care of the good guys fighting the fight. You can also join us on Patreon for special content and interviews. We also have swag, like these new mugs, starting as low as $5 a month, which is, basically what an iced coffee is in Manhattan when we had iced coffee shops open. You can go to patreon.com/The Nomiki Show.